reissue transaction reverses the cancellation from the beginning of a policy term. Nothing but the same effective date as cancellation will be displayed for the reissue effective date as well. That expires with the same number of months with the previous term. The transaction is valid only if the policy is currently in cancelled and the last transaction term is only that has been cancelled but not reinstated, rewritten or reissued. Okay. Suppose if you want to do the reissue transaction, it should the policy should have been done cancellation transaction, then only you can do the reissue transaction. Okay.
Okay.
The policy has been cancelled. After cancelling, if user has done any of the things like reinstated or rewritten or reissue, then you cannot do again reissue transaction.
Right.
Reissuing a policy that has been cancelled out of sequence does not reinstate any of the transactions that were set off by the out of sequence cancellation. This transaction is invalid if the policy has any open or scheduled reissue transaction. Reissue transaction is editable. Suppose if user has done any reissue previously but not committed it, it's still in open status, then in that case user cannot perform reissue again.
Right.
Okay. When it, I mean, like this is a editable transaction. User can modify any of the changes like coverages or effective date or any of the additional limit or premium values, or you can change anything. When is this transaction applicable? When user has logged in as an assistant manager or underwriter, the policy status should be in cancelled status. And only user can able to see the reissue transaction in the drop down. Date rule. The effective date defaulted to the cancellation date of the policy. Okay, previously you have done the cancellation transaction. Whatever the cancellation effective date is, the same thing will be displayed here as well. User cannot modify this date. That means user cannot modify this effective date.
Right.
Effective date rule. There is no specific rule. You can give whatever the date you want. Reason code rule. So rules for completion of the reissue transaction. The policy status will be changed to the enforce once you are performing the reissue transaction from cancel. Okay. Because previous transaction we have done cancellation transaction.
Okay.
Rules for out of sequence processing. Like reissuing a cancelled policy out of sequence does not reinstate any of the transactions. Suppose if you are doing the out of sequence transaction for the cancel and now you are trying to do the reissue, that will never work. The user must you manually reapply this transaction. Okay.
Okay.
Renew transaction. Renew in the sense like suppose user has taken the 1 year policy term and it's 1 year is all it's done. Now user want to take continue the policy again, then you can perform the renew transaction.
Yeah.
The renew transaction renews the policy for the policy term. It reissues a new policy number. It configures to do so in the individual product. The renew transaction is editable transaction. User can edit the transaction. Okay. If you want any additional extra coverages or any additional insurance, you can apply that and then renew it. Okay.
Yeah.
When is this transaction applicable? When user has logged in as an agent, the policy status should be in enforce. When user has logged in as an assistant, the policy status should be in cancel pending, enforce or non-renew. When user has logged in as a manager, the policy status should be in cancel pending, expired or enforced or non-renewed. When user has logged in as an underwriter, the policy status should be in cancel pending, enforced or non-renewed. Effective date rule. The effective date rule defaults to the expiration date of the current term. Okay. Nothing but today current, I mean, like what are the previous transaction expiration date is there, na? that expiration will be taken at the effective date.
Okay.
User cannot modify this date. Okay, user cannot change that particular date. Schedule date has no rule. You can select anything, whatever you want. Rule for completion of the renew transaction. Um, Upon completion of the transaction, the system retrieves the new policy number according to the product rule. So basically what happens now for the renew, when you are doing a renewal transaction for the policy, whatever the previous policy number is there, that will be changed once user renews the policy. And a new policy number will be updated.
Okay.
Rule for out of sequence transaction, their renew transaction cannot be processed in out of sequence. That means if you're done, if you're doing an out of sequence out of the box, then renew transaction cannot perform.
Yeah.
Renewal chain transaction. The renewal chain transaction requires the change to a policy that will become effective when that policy is renewed. Okay. Suppose if you wanted to change any of the modification you wanted to do after performing the renewal transaction, okay, then you can do the renewal chain transaction.
Yeah.
Okay, to change a policy that will become the effective when the policy is renewed. Duck Creek recommend that the batch process automatically commit renewal chain transaction prior to auto committing the renewal. So before renewal, after renewal itself, you can do the renewal chain transaction. This is an
Yeah.
editable. When you can perform it, like when you logged in as an agent, policy status should be as cancel pending or enforced. When you logged in as an assistant or manager or underwriter, the policy status should be as booked, bond, cancel pending, and or reinforced.
Yeah.
Effective date rule. The effective date default to the expiration date of the current term. Nothing but whatever the expiration date is the previous transaction or previous one. The same thing will be applied as an effective date for this renewal change transaction. User
Yeah.
can modify this date. Whereas schedule date rule, you can there is no rule for that. No, you cannot schedule a renewal change transaction. That means that this field is not applicable for that particular transaction.
Okay.
And rule for completing the renewal chain transaction. In addition, the system copies the data enter for the transaction to the corresponding open renewal transaction. Nothing but whatever the changes you are doing for the renewal chain transaction, the system will be copied the data entered for the transaction and it will open a new renewal transaction. So once you have done the renewal chain transaction, uh, renewal transaction will be applicable. User can perform renewal transaction, whereas updated data will be updated in this renewal transactions as well. Okay, this out of sequence is not this user cannot do once if it is out of sequence.
Okay.
Resign,
Can you tell me what is cancel pending?
haven't I covered previously?
No, cancel pending. I mean, when the policy is cancel pending. So cancel pending, I mean,
I'll be mentioning it in a cancel transaction.
okay.
Okay. Just give me a minute. Resign, cancel pending. I'll be covering that cancel transaction, cancel pending in that.
Okay.
Resign, cancel pending transaction. The resign, cancel pending transaction reverses the cancel pending transaction. Okay. What are the, suppose you have done any cancel pending transaction now. Okay. Now you don't want the changes to be there. You wanted to revert back the changes, whatever you have done in cancel pending transaction. Then you need to perform this resign, cancel pending transaction. This transaction type return the status of a policy to the original policy status before cancel pending transaction. Okay. It is often used in a batch processing triggered by a billing system when payment for the certain policy is received. The resigned cancel pending transaction is a non-editable transaction. User cannot modify any of the data here in this resigned cancel pending transaction. When this is applicable, when user logged in as an underwriter manager, the policy status should be in cancelled or cancel pending, expired, enforced, or non-renewed. When user had logged in as an system admin, the policy status should be in cancelled, cancel pending, expired, enforced, or non-renewed. What is the effective date rule? The effective date defaults to the effective date of the last non-resigned cancel pending transaction. That is cancel pending transaction to be reversed. Okay. What are the previous transactions for the before cancel pending transaction? The effective date will be same as that effective date.
Yeah.
User cannot modify this date. It will be defaulted to by that particular defaulted to that date particularly. Schedule date transaction. This has no transaction specific rule. Okay, user can modify whatever you want. Rule for completing resigned cancel pending transaction. Okay, the policy status is changed to the policy status before the policy was set to cancel pending. So whatever the previous transaction is there before cancel pending na, or details, the same details will be it will be reverted back to that itself. If you do resign cancel pending. Rules for out of sequence processing. The resigned cancel pending transaction can be processed out of sequence. This transaction type follows all general rules. For sequence scenarios, okay. So whatever out of sequence if you perform now, even resigned cancel pending is possible to do in that as well. Resigned endorse transaction. Nothing but what suppose you have done the endorsement transaction. Now you don't want the changes to be applicable. You wanted to reverse the changes whatever you have done in the endorse. Then in that case, you need to do resigned endorse transaction. A resigned endorse transaction, reverse an endorsement. This transaction type is used commonly to reverse large modification to a policy without having to remember everything previously modified. Okay.
Okay.
The transaction type restores policy values to a value that existed prior to the endorsement modification and recalculates the premium. Iterative items such as risks that were added are marked for delete and instead of removed, revised endorsement cannot be resigned. Okay, suppose for example, you have done the premium changes. Okay, such as risk coverage related premium changes you have done, which are iterative. Okay, those will be marked as delete, but it will not be removed.
Okay.
Okay, when you open that particular, when it reverted back, when you open, if you want, you can delete it. This resign transaction is non-editable transaction. Okay, user cannot edit it.
Yeah.
This transaction type is called resigned rather than resigned endorse. Okay.
Yeah.
In the transaction config files in the transact manuscript. When this is applicable. So basically, when user has logged in as an agent, the policy status should be in info. If it's logged in as an assistant, then it should be in booked, bond, cancel pending, or enforced or non-renewed. You can remember only two, like underwriter and agent. Remaining you can ignore. Those will be handled by the user admin team.
Okay.
Okay. When user logged in as an underwriter, the policy status should be in booked bond or cancel pending, in force or non-renewal. Effective date rule. The effective date defaulted to the effective date of the endorsement transaction to be resigned. Okay, the same effective date will be defaulted.
Yeah.
User cannot modify this date. Schedule date rule. It has no transaction specific rule. User can give whatever the date he wants. Rule for completion, the resigned endorsement transaction. There has no specific rule. Okay, you can do anything.
Hmm.
Rules suffer out of the sequence processing. It has no rule. User can do out of the sequence as well.
Okay.
Resign non-renew. So what are the non-renew transactions you have done? Now, if you wanted to revert it back and to the original policy status, then you need to perform this resign non-renew transaction.
Hmm.
This transaction is non-editable transaction. When is this applicable? When the user has logged in as an underwriter, manager, or assistant, it should be a non-renew policy status. Okay.
Yeah.
Effective date. The effective date defaults to the expiration date of the policy, that is effective date of the non-renew transaction to be resigned. Okay. What are the previous transaction for this resigned non-renew transaction is non-renew transaction. So what are the like the effective date will be defaulted to the expiration date of non-renew transaction.
Yeah.
User cannot modify it. A schedule date rule, it has no specific schedule date rule. User can do whatever the date he wants. Rule for completion of the resigned non-renew transaction. The policy, upon completion of this resigned transaction, the policy status will be changed to the policy status before the policy was set to non-renewed.
Hmm.
Rules for out of sequence. This cannot be proceeded in this particular transaction.
Okay.
Rewrite transaction. The rewrite transaction rewrite the cancel policy. Okay, user can perform this transaction only when user has done the cancellation transaction. Later on that itself, you can perform rewrite transaction.
Hmm.
Nothing but whatever the cancelled policy you have done, no, the rewrite transaction, which will rewrite the entire policy.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that means new details. If you wanted to give, you can give.
Hmm.
Create a new policy term that starts on a specific date and expiration in the same number of months as cancel term. This transaction is valid only if the policy is currently cancelled and the last transaction term is only term that has been cancelled but not reinstated. Suppose if user has done reinstated, then user cannot perform rewrite. Only if the user has done cancellation itself, then only user can perform rewrite.
Okay.
Okay. This transaction type modifies the policy number and creates entirely new record of the policy. Okay, this transaction, whatever you will do now, what are the changes you have done? I mean, like you have given new changes, like username or coverages or premium, everything. Okay, that will be considered as a new record of the policy. Even
Hmm.
the policy number will be written as a new policy number.
Hmm.
Okay, the rewritten policy is linked to its rewrite, but out of sequence processes will not cross the two terms. Rewriting a policy that has been cancelled out of sequence does not reinstate any of the transactions that were offset to the out of sequence cancellation. Rewrite transaction is editable transaction to restart. So basically, if you do the out of sequence transaction, it will not be applicable. Okay, in rewrite transaction is an editable transaction. To restart a flat cancel policy using an existing policy number. So, suppose if you wanted to open the old policy itself, like cancelled policy number, existing policy number itself, then you need to restart the transaction. Then itself you can open the previous existing policy number. Once you do the rewrite transaction, now what will happen? It will generate new policy number.
Yeah.
When is this transaction applicable? When user has logged in as an agent, assistant, manager, or underwriter, their policy status should be in cancelled, then only user can perform this renew. I mean, like, what is this transaction? Rewrite transaction.
Yeah.
Effective date rule. The effective date will be defaulted to the date that is 30 days after the current date. Okay, for example, user have unlike all other transactions that can be dated up to 30 days to the expiration date. Suppose user has created the policy 1 week back. Okay, now today you are doing the rewrite transaction. So
Yeah.
if you consider today's date itself,
Okay. Yeah.
default effective date will be today. 30 days after the current date. That means from today, after 30 days, whatever the date will come, 30th day, that will be considered as an effective date.
Yeah.
Schedule date rule has no specific rule. You can give anything. Reason code rule. Okay, the following reason code rules are valid for the rewrite transaction. Agent assistant payment will be received. Manager payment will be received. Auditor is not applicable. Underwriter payment will be received. What are the premium amount is there till then now after rewriting? That amount will be received by the policyholder.
Yeah.
The rules for completing the rewrite transaction. Policy status should be changed to the enforced. Okay, once you have done the rewrite transaction, the policy status will be changed to the enforced from cancelled. The system registers a new policy number according to the product rule. Okay, when you rewrite now, the old new policy number will be generated.
Yeah.
Rule for out of sequence processing. Rewriting a cancelled policy out of sequence are not reached at any of the transactions that were offset by the cancellation. That means you then, if you wanted to do out of sequence now, the previous changes will not be applicable. Okay. If you wanted to do, then you need to do manually. But this is not. This is waste of doing. I mean, like you cannot do the out of sequence for the rewrite. Cancel transaction. The cancel transaction cancels the policy and sets the policy status to cancel. Okay. The cancel transaction is non-editable transaction. User cannot modify any of the info, whatever is updated. When transaction was cancelled because of the insured request, the cancelled unearned factor is rounded by default. This calculation can be set to truncate instead of using truncate unearned premium. Configure parameter. For example, user wanted to cancel his insurance policy. Okay, we have cancelled. What happens when after cancellation? Suppose if you have cancelled before expiration date itself, whatever that 1 month or 2 months or 3 months before he has cancelled, the particular premium will be calculated. Unearned premium, like unused premium. Okay, that amount will be automatically calculated by default.
Yeah.
When this transaction is applicable, when user has logged in as an agent, the policy status should be in info. When user has logged in as an underwriter, the policy status should be in booked, bond, cancel pending, enforced, or non-renewed. When user has logged in as an assistant, the policy status should be in booked, bond, cancel pending, enforced, or non-renewed. When user has logged in as a manager, the policy status should be in booked, bond, cancelled, cancel pending, expired, enforced, or non-renewed. Effective date rule. The cancel transaction follows the general schedule rule. It has no transaction specific rule. Sorry. Okay. There is no effective date rule and there is no scheduled data rule as well. User can do whatever the date he wants. Reason course rule. Agent non-payment. Okay, when user has logged in and then the payment will be not issued. What are the leftover premium? Okay. When user has logged in as assistant, non-payment, issued request, underwriting reasons. When user has logged in as a manager or underwriter, then as well non-payment. I mean, like payment will be not issued. Rules for completing the cancel transaction. The policy status should be will be changed. Okay, will be changed to the cancelled. The system set the policy cancel date to the transaction effective date. What are the last transaction effective date will be now? That will be defaulted to that. If you want, user can change it.
Yeah.
Rules for out of the sequence processing. Any transaction effective after the effective date of the out of sequence cancel transaction are separated from the policy. These transactions are on set if the policy cancelled, if the policy is reinstated. Suppose user has done cancelled, and after that, if he has done any reinstate transaction, then what user can perform the out of sequence cancel transaction.
Right.
When when an outdated sequence cancel must cross a term, the system applies the cancel transaction for the first term and then applies the out of sequence transaction. For example, reinstated a cancel policy that crosses the term requires reinstating the first term cancellation and then reinstating the second term cancellation. When you reinstate a policy that was cancelled out of sequences, for example, user has done reinstated a policy initially. Okay, initially
Yeah.
he has cancelled and then reinstated a cancelled policy. Okay. Then again, again the user has cancelled the policy and then again user has done a reinstatement again, second time as well.
Yeah.
Then the cancelled out of sequences is there now. Those what are the changes have done that will be restored. If you are performing the out of sequence only after 2 times performing the reinstate transaction. It's cancel pending. Cancel pending transaction changes the status of the policy to cancel pending. This transaction type does not cancel the policy or affect the premium. Instead, it generally triggered an automatic transaction for a billing system to notify user that the policy will be cancelled if the payment is not received.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
The cancel pending transaction is non-editable transaction. User cannot change it. When is this applicable? When user logged in as an underwriting manager, the policy status should be in booked, bond, or enforced or non-renewed. When user has logged in as a system admin, the policy status should be in booked, bond, or enforced or non-renewed. The effective date rule. It has no specific rule. Schedule date rule. It has no specific rule for that as well. You can give what are the effective date you want. Reason code rule. When user logged in as an agent, assistant, manager, or underwriter, payment will not be issued. Rules for completing the cancel pending transaction. The policy status will be changed to the cancel pending when user has done the cancel pending transaction. The system sets the policy cancel date to the transaction of the effective date. What are the previous transaction effective date will be? That same effective date will be considered as a cancel pending effective date. Out of sequences, if it has no specific rule, user can do out of sequence transaction.